guess what? I think I got my voice back. At least enough to make this video.
TERF Wars. I have to admit, I do have a selfish motive for making this video, my dear viewers, which I hope is clearly presented to your satisfaction by the end. It is not my intention to misrepresent either side, both people whose videos I am very fond of. Needless to say, I am biased towards many of the Prince's opinions, but do share a few of Magdalen Berns. I won't waste your time with me. You can judge for yourself by the output of this channel. Prince of Queens is angry at Magdalen Berns because of a video she created that the Prince feels contains lies, and that Magdalen has sent her fans out to attack and harass him in the YouTube comments section and on Twitter. The Prince has called into question Magdalen's claim of brain cancer, and at one point has called it a stunt to get out of whatever it is she would be getting out of, and he demands an apology from her. He has since conceded the issue of brain cancer. Well done. Magdalen Berns created a response to Prince of Queens' TERF video, typical of her, a well-honed, logical blow-by-blow takedown of his charges. I think it's best to attempt a timeline of events. But first, a little background. Magdalen Berns does what Magdalen Berns always does on her YouTube channel, in which she states about herself: I am a lesbian, a physics graduate, a floss accessibility hacker, wonder what that is, an ex-feminist, an ex-amateur boxer, be careful with her, a blogger, an activist, a cultural libertarian, a Londoner, a critic of religion, yay, capitalism, identity politics, conservatism, neoliberalism, and socially imposed gender norms. She is a feminist and is sometimes referred to as a TERF, which stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist. TERF is often used as pejorative terminology for, well, let's look at the completely useless and unreliable rational wiki for context. And I quote from this source: Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminism is a subgroup of radical feminism characterized by transphobia, especially trans-misogyny and hostility to the third wave of feminism. They believe the only real women are those born with a vagina and XX chromosomes. They wish to completely enforce the classic gender binary, supporting gender essentialism. To put that into simpler terminology, Magdalen believes that if you are born a woman, you are a woman. She feels that feminists have fought hard for decades to have their spaces, and feel the invasion of self-identified women with a penis into a woman's space is a violation. I am not a feminist, nor a radical feminist, so forgive me if I've mischaracterized her stand on the issue. Magdalen Berns, a self-identified lesbian, has earned the ire of social justice warriors and third-wave feminists for making videos that are often responses to people in the trans community, with titles such as transgender versus transtrender identity, a false distinction, and misgendering is violence. Nah, mate. Whether you agree or disagree with her videos, they are well thought out and logical, as well as being entertaining, or at least I find them so. Prince of Queens has a rather unique as well as thoughtful and intelligent view of social justice. While not being an SJW, he does have a balanced grasp of the issues of equality and the things that most reasonable people care about, and seems to land rather comfortably into the anti-SJW and anti-feminist camp. Prince of Queens' YouTube About page says, I am a homosexual guy in his mid-30s, taking apart the mentality of fourth-wave intersectional feminism, social justice, bigoteers, one dramatic and nasal voiced opinion video at a time. Wow. I don't need as big of an intro to the Prince, since most watching will already be familiar with the type of people who are against the religious cult of social justice. He says fourth wave feminism, so I guess I'm an old timer still stuck opposing the tactics of the third wave. He is likely to be pissing off the PC police crowd with YouTube video titles such as SJW culture is going to vanish quickly, as if it never existed, and will feminist corruption ever end? What seems to have started this debate gone wild is Prince of Queens' video about TERFs. He talks.
The real problem with TERFs. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and a few people have requested that I have a live stream chat with Magdalen Berns, who is a lesbian feminist who is seemingly firmly annoyed by non-binary identified people like the dude shown in this picture, but also she gets very annoyed with transgender or transtrender women claiming to be lesbians, like Justin Riley Dennis.
That, I believe, fairly accurately sums up Magdalen Berns' attitude towards trans women, and proceeds to suggest that he and Magdalen have a chat where they can start off with things they have in common and go from there, which I think would still be a good idea.
I figured it would be good and interesting for us to have a chat because although I imagine that she and I have a lot in common in regards to our annoyances towards the trans trenders, Berns identifies as a feminist, and so we also probably disagree on a lot of things. But she seems at least somebody that I could have a nice chat with, and YouTube needs more of that.
Prince of Queens stakes out a fairly unambiguous position on the topic of trans women, one you would think might pique the interest of Magdalen Berns. She does say in her response that she agrees with most of the beginning of it.
I have a lot of transgender friends both on YouTube and also in real life, and I strongly consider myself very sympathetic to their issues and even an actual ally. However, this does not mean that I agree with every piece of the common fourth wave intersectional feminist narrative in regards to transgender people. Namely, I do not agree with people who say that transgender women are real women entirely, because I think it comes down to an annoying semantic debate at best, but more so an offensive denial of objective reality at worst.
After talking some about his past experience as a gay youth, the prince put forward a reasonable attitude towards people wanting to call themselves whatever they want, and with keeping one foot in the reality of biological sex.
Can a transgender male call themselves a gay transgender male if they are attracted to men? Absolutely, I have no problem with that. However, I am of the school of thought that transgender people will always be transgender people, which is fine to me. I have no problem with transgender people, but it's nice to at least admit biology exists.
He has no problem with people being comfortable in their own skin. Like it.
You see, if somebody is born feeling that they are uncomfortable with the gender of their body the way it naturally develops, I think that they should be more than welcome to transition into appearing more like the gender that goes against their genitals. If that makes them happy, why should I care?
But he is not as nearly comfortable with trans persons being identified with the biological sex that they have transitioned into.
I'll say it like this. When people start drawing lines in the sand and demanding that people go against objective reality to act as if there are no differences between transgender women and cisgender women, for example, it opens up a huge can of worms and sets the stage for a giant array of conflicts around inclusion.
You would think that he would be appealing to the radical feminists that do not accept trans women as biological women.
So sometimes you just have to say, enough is enough, fuck off, you need to learn how to feel happy with your identity as a transgender person and leave cisgender people out of it. You are not entitled to control whether cisgender women ever talk about their vaginas or their periods. So go to hell and find a new activist cause, you selfish piece of shit. That is my stance on uppity transgender people who demand inclusion everywhere.
It seems to go swimmingly up until now, but at last there is trouble in paradise.
But here's where TERFs begin to get weird. TERFs often start saying that transgender women have quote-unquote male privilege, because supposedly they have been conditioned socially to be male, and supposedly that gives them male privilege, which is completely offensive to me both as a transgender ally and a male myself. Simply put, male privilege as a singular entity absolutely does not exist.
So he steps even deeper into the doo-doo with this conclusion.
TERFs seemingly act as if transgender youth who are biologically male and seen that way by their peers are treated with some inherent awesomeness which taints their ability to be quote-unquote real women after they transition, which is largely just complete bullshit.
Which is probably not nearly as confrontational as this.
That ain't no privilege, Cupcake.
I can't be totally certain, but I think the last few clips just played may have elicited a response from Magdalen Berns. No one but the prince knows if he intended this more as a provocative attention grabber to coax Magdalen into a chat or maybe a purposeful flame. Either way, he got a response.
So this YouTuber called Prince of Queens, who identifies himself as a men's rights advocate and also is a gay man, has got in touch with me via Twitter and asked to do a live stream. In the meantime, he's created a video where he's discussing TERF's bulk of the first half. I more or less see his point, but there's a bit towards the end I can't really allow to pass without comment before this live stream because I think it needs to get cleared up.
Okay, so far so good. Magdalen wants to clear the air before the live chat.
I didn't exactly appreciate these people claiming that they have the same identity as myself for a few reasons, but mostly because as a gay kid growing up seen as a male by my peers, I knew that I had a drastically different experience than anybody who grew up as seen as female.
Here we definitely agree. Male children and female children have drastically different experience to one another.
Still good they both agree on some things, sort of.
They have been conditioned socially to be male, and supposedly that gives them male privilege.
To me, it seems like you don't think that male privilege exists.
Well, there was bound to be a problem since many feminists believe in male privilege. But that's not so bad since we can't always agree on everything. Right?
Male privilege as a singular entity absolutely does not exist.
The initial assumption of the people who say trans women have male privilege is that male privilege exists. Of course, if you don't think male privilege exists at all, this is going to seem like nonsense to you.
We're heading into irreconcilable difference territory here. But whatever you do here, Prince of Queens, don't give an inch. I'm serious. Stay firm. Stand your ground.
I will concede that there are a select few circumstances where it is advantageous to be male growing up in the West in terms of how you are treated.
See, this is what feminists refer to as male privilege.
Oops, you kind of stepped into a royal poo here, Prince. She has a point. It is precisely what feminists refer to as male privilege.
But I am willing to bet that these generally do not feel like privileges to people who are born with penises that suffer from gender dysphoria.
So now you're suggesting that male privilege is a thing and saying, well, it doesn't apply because they're feminine or whatever. It doesn't work like that. Male privilege does not mean men get it easy in every area of their lives.
The classic argument against the existence of male privilege. SJWs and feminists seem to regard the does not feel like privilege thing as a weak one. I'm with you here, Prince. I'm in your corner because I think there's a bit too much made of all these privileges we're supposed to have been born with. A good argument can be made regarding wealth and class. It's easier to convince me that someone born with the proverbial silver spoon in their mouth has class privilege, especially in a society where there are clear classes and it is difficult or impossible to traverse the boundaries. It is more difficult to make that argument based on the sheer accident of birth in developed nations where there are laws and, more importantly, cultural standards to protect everyone.
Transgender women are the highest population to suffer from hate crimes proportionally.
Sex is not considered an aggravating factor in hate crime because that category does not exist in hate crime legislation. What that means is that regardless of whether a person was raped or physically assaulted because they were female, those crimes do not get registered as hate crimes. What are you comparing the hate crimes against trans women to? You can't be comparing them to women because there is no data on this.
If I am understanding Magdalen's point here, it is not that there isn't legislation against hate crimes and not that there aren't statistics kept, but it's an apples to oranges comparison. A sexual assault against a woman in and of itself is not a hate crime. I see what you did there, Magdalen. You're a clever one. Cupcake alert.
That ain't no privilege, Cupcake.
Are you calling me Cupcake now? Or I don't know.
The prince says TERF is not a slur, but it's being taken as one.
Real TERFs take it way further than that, to the point where it illustrates the true venomous hatred that exists within these women's hearts.
Difficult to have a conversation with somebody who's insulting you.
The following exchange isn't very conducive as a prelude to a polite chat. What do you think in the comments below? Let me know. I'll be looking.
There are some women who are angry that the term TERF is used as an insult at all.
This term I find very insulting.
These are often the ones that I had only really heard about until a bit over a month ago when I encountered one online.
Women don't use that term to describe themselves. That's a term which women who acknowledge biology and say the same things you said in the first half of your video, by the way, get branded with.
These are the ones that think that transgender women are just deeply twisted and violent men that want to use transitioning as a way to further victimize women.
Is that what this one TERF that you met online said?
We get a follow-up video from Prince of Queens offering concern over Magdalen's well-being. What's for ein Curl?
Dear Magdalen Berns, I'm worried about you. Hey Megs, it's Prince of Queens. And this is not sarcastic. This is not an act. We've had a bit of drama, but I am legitimately worried about you because you said that you actually have brain cancer. That truthfully very much concerns me. This makes me feel so bad that I literally talked to my mother about this and told her the whole story, and she agreed that it's troublesome.
Well, that was sort of a nice start. Nice touch bringing in the mum. If this stays civil, I don't see why there can't be reconciliation between dueling parties.
Am I, quote-unquote, concern trolling? Well, that's just a feminist buzzword anyway that implies that it is impossible to be legitimately concerned for somebody and also think that they are kind of an asshole. Truthfully, I feel both things about you, Miss Berns.
Well, that escalated quickly.
Prince of Queens makes a case that Magdalen Berns has misunderstood him and has misrepresented other people such as Blair White. But there is more.
Because your fans are fucking piranhas. They went far beyond simply calling me a few names like faggot and stuff, which they did as well. They accused me of hating women because I am an aging gay man that can't get laid. It would be quite offensive if I gave a shit. At any point, you could have mentioned in the comments, "Oh crap, I messed up and got confused about what you meant," and your fans would have probably largely stopped.
I want an apology.
You see, I think you are usually probably a rather intelligent person. Apparently, you work in physics, and a lot of the arguments you make tend to be pretty logical if one were to assume the context you present them with is solid.
Now I'm getting the warm fuzzies from this. I won't include more of Prince's response as it's long and I want to keep this under an hour, but he makes many points, some caustic but all heartfelt. There was a response from Magdalen that Prince of Queens objected to not only for the content but the fact that it was a first play video on her YouTube homepage. It is a video montage set to music that includes some of Prince of Queens' tweets.
Dear Magdalen Berns, I'm worried about you. Because you said that you actually have brain cancer. That truthfully very much concerns me. This makes me feel so bad.
If you are familiar with my videos, you will see I talk about bad ideas a lot. And one thing I see as a bad idea is these two not getting along. It's an internet's transaction that got ugly. A common occurrence on the interwebs. You have a lot in common. Pissing off SJWs is a start. I say bury the hatchet and kiss and make up. Who knows? You may even get some dating preference advice from Riley J. Dennis.
Joke, deadpan moment.
Look, you both have large followings, and I'm a nobody, so you're probably thinking, who is this guy? Feck off. But I humbly hope that you both can see your way to maybe starting a productive dialogue. Prince of Queens, as I asked in a Twitter thingy, maybe give Magdalen some time to recover. Magdalen, even though he's a man who's been naughty, cut him some slack And if you both want to flame me in the comments for sticking my privileged nose into this, then have at it. But think about it. Now, if you got this far, then maybe there's this thing going off saying, gosh, maybe he's right. If Lacey Green can do it then, well, oops, sorry. I don't mean either of you can date Chris Ray Gunn. It's the Lacey Green starting a dialogue with the enemy thing I was referring to. Sorry. Even if you two can't sort it out, find some common ground and have a chat, please keep making your videos. Magdalen, get better, stay healthy. I hope you keep making videos for a long time. They're great. Prince of Queens, love your videos. Keep at it. Great titles, great subjects. Keep fighting. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Yuck. What a total meddling gimboid that disturbing trends guy is.